Star Trek Catan comes to the United States, and we have other bits of information you just can't live without.
Welcome to Pulp Gamer Prime. I'm Scott Forster.
And I'm Don Dem, and today Mayfair Games has announced that Star Trek Catan is going to be available in the U.S. The VP of Sales and Marketing, Bob Carty, is going to be here with us today to tell you some more about it. Also, we asked the question of several prominent peeps, game designers and whatnot. What is the number one thing a game designer can do? You'll find out.
But first, a follow-up on a story we've been following for over 6 months now, the Merchant of Venus controversy. Kerfuffle, yes. Both Fantasy Flight and Stronghold Games announced they were reprinting the Avalon Hill Classic Merchant of Venus last fall. And
they
then
announced it on the same day, didn't they?
It was the same week. One of them announced it, then the other one was like, oh, wait.
We're doing that.
I think we're doing that. So, of course, the lawyers got involved. Well, they just announced that it's been resolved. Fantasy Flight will be releasing Merchant of Venus this fall, but with some Stronghold input. They're bringing in a Stronghold designer as a consultant, and they're actually going to be releasing the game with a double-sided board with the updated Fantasy Flight rules set on one side and the classic Avalon Hill game with some Stronghold touches on the other side.
So that kind of reflects the personality of the game companies, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It's really an interesting, mashup of the two of them. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing how they're different. They've showed the Fantasy Flight board, and it's definitely different from the classic board. So we'll see what the rules change, what it does.
So looking in, it kind of looks like Fantasy Flight technically won, but they're going to play nice.
Yeah, it does look that way, but there's kind of some concessions. There's been a lot of talk about another game from this designer, Magic Realm, being reprinted, and there are hints. It says Stronghold is talking to the designer about publishing other games by him in the next year. So it looks like there might have been a give and take there.
That's cool. That's cool. It should be, I think, a better package because of it.
Yeah, I agree.
The double-sided thing sounds neat.
Yeah, it should be really neat.
All right, and now that moment that you have been anticipating since Star Trek Catan was released in Europe. Star Trek Catan now available in the United States. Now joining us to tell us more about it, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Mayfair Games, Bob Carty. Bob, congratulations on the bringing Catan to America, and welcome to the Pulp Gamer Prime Show.
Why, thank you, Don.
You're absolutely welcome.
Thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here virtually with you.
So, okay, Star Trek Catan. We know we know if we're looking already because it's out in Europe already that we've got pieces, we've got resources of dilithium, titanium, food, oxygen, water. It plays like Catan, but something new is you've got character cards that shake the game, make it up a little bit different than the Catan experience we're used to playing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I can't tell you a whole lot of details because that would kind of spill the beans. But let's just say
too many spoilers.
You spill the beans and you slip on them, and then there's that whole lawsuit and all the other. Anyway, there are 10 character cards, and they are all classic characters from the original Star Trek series, that wonderful 3 seasons of iconography. And they each will affect your play. They allow you to do special things. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but for instance, Kirk gets to void the robber for himself.
Which is a Klingon warship, from what I understand.
Yes, it is. It is a Klingon. The robber in this game is represented by a Klingon D7. Your roads are classic Starship Enterprises. Your settlements look a lot like that little listening post that gets vaporized in at least 1 or 2 movies. And then to turn it into a city, you actually add a ring and it becomes a space station.
So Captain Kirk gets to cheat. That's pretty much what we know about him from the show.
That's a classic Star Trek.
Bob, how do these cards work? Do you get the card at the beginning of the game and you are that character for the whole game, or do you draw them during the game?
Well, for the most part, you can only use them once in a turn, and you at most can keep them and use them 2 turns in a row, but then they go back in the pool. A lot of times you're going to want to use them once and then get a different card depending on your goals.
Okay, so coming out in, I guess we're shooting for September time frame. It's available in Target. You're going to be made available in Target first. What about the hobby retail channel, though? Do we have anything special planned for them, or when can we expect to see something there?
Well, we can't say a lot of what we have plan for the hobby channel. We have a number of products in proposal stages that'll be hobby core exclusive. Now, they won't be the basic game, but I got to tell you, from everything that happened, having a Star Trek product in Target that is also a Catan product gives us what I would say is one of the ultimate new gamer draws. I mean, there's millions of Star Trek fans who are not gamers, and if you want to get people involved, I mean, Star Trek fans are going to have to buy it. And then, of course, they have to start playing Catan. They have no choice.
You can't just leave that on the shelf. You have to play it.
And if we, the decision to make it a Target exclusive is a very difficult one for us, but we just couldn't make the numbers. And so we made that decision. But on the bright side, again, as I said, this is the ultimate new gamer draw product, in my opinion. Who doesn't love Star Trek?
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, there's 8 people out there someplace.
We'll convert them. It just takes time.
So for the hobby trade, we'll make special products that either work with or work aside from the Star Trek game itself, so that they will have Star Trek products to sell in their stores that'll be exclusive to them.
Now, you mentioned, of course, you can't make the numbers. Is that a sign that, is hobby struggling, or is that just that scale difference between acquiring the license for Catan and its the complexities there?
It's probably mostly focus and scale. This is a pretty sizable license from our standpoint, because we're not one of those really big companies like the guys that make those other games that start with an M or start with an L or start with an S.
Yeah. So
you talked about the license, getting the licensing for Star Trek. I understand there's a big difference between. There's already been a German release for this game. I understand there's some problems, some issues with getting the license for the U.S. Can you talk about the difference between?
It's just a matter of time. I mean,
really?
The time it took. I wouldn't say it was necessarily difficult, just long.
The process, you mean, going from all the way through approval just takes a longer time for a U.S. license?
It probably took as long for the Germans. We just didn't know what was going on.
Okay. All right. Is it premature to be looking at other licenses? I mean, is there a possibility that we could see Star Trek in something else?
Can't comment on that. Nice try, though.
We had to give it a go.
Tell us about your 2014 release schedule.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd like, I'll pull up what isn't going to be the release schedule in about 3 weeks. And we can go, but I thought you said last year that this was coming out. We lied.
Excellent.
Okay, so I think, thanks a lot, Bob, for coming on to the show. Appreciate having you on and giving us a little inside look into goings-on of Star Trek Catan.
Coming to the U.S. this fall.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be fun. Even without the characters, I like the skin and the feel of it. I like Star Trek. So
I'm really looking forward to being Captain Kirk. Do the Kobayashi Maru. Yeah,
you look like Captain Kirk.
Yeah, it's the hair.
I think I'm gonna refer to the food resource as quadritriticale. I think that is definitely the food resource.
Right. Obscure references. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about. I know
someone out there knows what you're talking about. Yeah. Next up on the show, we managed to catch up with some game publishers and designers.
Prominent peeps.
Some prominent peeps in the game industry, one might say, to ask the question, what's the number one thing a game designer should do? Let's see what they had to say.
Play his games. Play his games over and over and over again. An old friend of mine said that you should never show a game to a game company before you've played it 100 times.
Playtest. Take your game to a convention and play it with strangers. Not just your friends and family, play it with people who don't know you and don't have a vested interest. Make sure people are going, oh my god, that was really good, I want to play that again.
I think game designer needs to balance going with your gut, going with something that feels fun and you're working for yourself and the things that you enjoy, but balance that out with playtesting and listening to honest feedback, both from actual gamers, and then if you're looking for publication, actually talk to the retailers, the ones who are going to be selling it on the other end, and getting real feedback from them before you go to final production. You got to look at both sides.
get an awareness of what everybody else is doing, it's very easy for me to go, oh, I want to make the incredibly cool thing and put myself in my little box. But I think that I have an obligation to experience what everybody else is making. One of my personal quests is to play every game at least once, because I think everyone should have a quest they can never complete.
The most important thing that a game designer should do is design games. Like, make a lot of games and throw them away. And you'll learn more about that. Here's why. People say that game designers should play a lot of games, which is true, but game design is about removing things, and if all you do is play other things, you'll never learn how to remove. You'll only learn how to copy. If you make your own stuff, you will learn what it's really like to cut something down to the best parts. If you just copy stuff, you'll never get that.
You know, it is true that actually the true form of art is not what you put into it, but what you take out of it, right? Whittling it down to its components. Very good point. A lot of good points in there.
Yeah. And we've got even more coming up in our next show. We had a bunch of people who answered the question talking from more of a business perspective, how to build for the market that you're looking for, how to present your game to the publisher.
So it kind of turned into a two-parter.
It definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at that in our next show.
So cool. Yeah, and we got a bunch more of those too. So also coming up, Gen Con is coming up very soon, middle of August in Indianapolis.
Right.
And we're going to have a big shindig like we always do. We call it the Media Meet and Greet. It's going to be in the basement of Union Station, all sorts of media types. Started back in our, when we had all the podcasts going on and all of our friends that are in the industry that are doing podcasts and everybody else. If you're doing a podcast, then let your fans know that that's where you're going to be, 8 o'clock, basement of Union Station, Saturday night of Gen Con. But so make that a part of your Saturday night. It's going to be a good time.
Definitely. See you there.
All right, bye.
PulpGamer.com